Hi, everybody, and welcome to this session today on what are gateway services and how independent lawyers can use gateway services to onboard clients faster and more effectively. So, I've got a short presentation which I'm going to hook up on the screen. And in the meanwhile, as you join in, please do state what your current practice is about. If you're practicing, if you're working in a job or you're a student, mention that. Okay. Now we're going to start the session now. So let's understand from the perspective of the top three complaints of an independent practitioner. What are the top three complaints that are most common? Clients expect too much, clients don't want to pay, and they want to take free advice and then they disappear. This is the standard complaint that any independent practitioner has. Right now, we're going to look at how to deal with this. Okay, so why does this arise? Why does the issue arise? So I'm recapping this from yesterday. We've discussed this at length yesterday. The reasons for this issue arising are clients find it hard to trust lawyers initially. And the real questions are this: do you understand the problem that I'm facing? Can you spot any areas that I may have missed? Are you competent to deliver what you've promised? Uh, will you adhere to service delivery within the timelines that you're stating? Have you done this work before, or is it going to be for the first time with me? Will you be available to take my calls, respond to my queries after I give you the mandate, or will you disappear? How can I trust you that your quote will be fair and that you will not overcharge me? How do I know that you're not overcharging me? What is the ROI or the value of your service for my business? Okay. Then now this is the question, right? Now we're going to flip the situation a little and we're going to identify what can be offered for cheap or free. Okay. And so we've come up with this concept of gateway service. And what is a gateway service? A gateway service is a low cost entry point for you and the client. Because, see, when there is a lack of trust in the situation, there's not a lot you can negotiate about the complexity of work and the unique value add that you will be providing. Instead, what can you do? You can have so a gateway service is basically a low cost entry point for you to get on to get start serving the client. Okay, because on a low cost entry point there will not be much negotiation. Worst case, you will be offering it at the cheapest rate that the client says, or even free. Okay, and I will show you what kind of gateway services you can offer at almost no cost to you. Like whatever cost is there for you is actually your investment in learning new skills. Okay, so then it gets you a foot in the door, because at least you have the client speaking to you. He's not yet paid you, but he's speaking to you and he's interested in the client is interested in knowing more about what you do. The client can appreciate the value or the insight, the intellectual capacity that you bring on the table. And you get to interact not only with the client, but also often with the key stakeholders, the decision makers. So if it's a partnership firm or if it's a company, you can look at the other members of the board of directors, or you can interact with the CFO. These kind of opportunities emerge when you are delivering a gateway service. Okay, it also enables you to know more about the client's business. So we were talking about this, that a lot of times we as lawyers do not know the exact pain point of the client, and clients themselves are not aware of it so well. Now in the gateway service, what happens is, because you are providing a low cost service, you're interacting with certain people in the client's office, or who make decisions. So you will identify more and more problems. It's really an information gathering exercise, and the more information you have, the more powerful your conversation will be with clients later when you are supposed to propose billable services. Okay, so why is this important? This basically, see, when you're demanding payment later, it's important to go with a value proposition and to offer value in every conversation. Okay, so before you have offered the gateway service, the client has come to you asking you that before you've offered the gateway service, the client has seen your articles. So they have been, and they may have read about you. So they are aware of your content. Okay, but what they're not aware of is specifically, will you be able to deliver what I need? Okay, so they know that in general you are an expert on the subject matter that you write about. So that much trust has been built. But the second part of trust, that can you help me out in my situation, that's not yet built. Okay. So here, this gateway service enables there to be an exchange of energy. What do I mean by an exchange of energy? The client has a need and you're providing some value, and both sides are basically, and what is the client exchanging? The client is sharing a lot of information about his or her business with you, and you're providing some insights. Okay, so there is an exchange of energy that builds that trust and safety for the client, because he's not being asked to pay first. And this is reverse of the previous or the prior experiences of the client, where the client has had to pay the lawyer before any work began. Here you are giving some low cost service for free. Okay. Now, what independent lawyers usually struggle with at this stage is because they don't have this onboarding process. So they don't have a bigger list of services to offer after they deliver the gateway service. They also don't have enough gateway services to offer. So we're going to discuss more about this and how you can create more gateway services to onboard more clients. Okay, so what are the most popular gateway services? There are some conventional gateway services that have been used. Okay, so now these are usually the low cost, the simpler ones to deliver. Incorporation, tax registration, IP registration, some commercial contracts like NDAs, not every commercial contract, okay? Like a FIDIC construction agreement, or an Asia Pacific Loan Market Association ECB agreement, like a foreign loan agreement, or a syndicate loan agreement, or an investment agreement. Those are advanced services. Those are not gateway services. Those are fully chargeable, billable stuff, okay? But what's the simplest stuff that is usually offered in the market? Incorporation, tax registration, IP registration, NDAs, okay? Then only one problem is there, that these services are slightly simplistic to show, what's the additional value add that you will offer. From time to time, that becomes a problem. But right now, just keep this in mind, that which are the services that can be offered. Market for these services is currently crowded, so it will be important for you to invent new services. But before we go on to inventing new services, let's just look at the common examples, because I think even here there is a lot of value add. Okay, so clients may need legal notices to be sent for a variety of reasons. It's not a regular legal notice necessarily. There may be different kinds of legal notices. Default in payment by customers, clients, tenants, borrowers under contracts, deficiency in services by airlines, taxi services, doctors, any other professional, legal notices for check bounce, demand notices under IBC, legal notice for evacuation of property by the tenant, notice of commencement of arbitration, takedown notice, and any other notices for infringement or passing off of IP. If you want me to explain what these notices are, you can let me know. Okay, you can put in the chat, and at the end, I will explain what the notices are. Notices for any other contract breaches, like breach of confidentiality, non-compete, or non-solicit issues. Notices for family law related matters such as divorce by mutual consent, response to a note. Now then, responses. Okay, response to a notice received by a director or an ex-director for non-payment of tax by a company. Response to a show cause notice received from SEBI by intermediaries like smaller brokers, portfolio management, investment advisors. Response to strike off notices received from the registrar of companies for non-filing of financial statements. So here, the show cause notice aspect is that, SEBI from time to time, because it's in a regulated, it is the regulator, it will keep sending various kinds of notices to market intermediaries and brokers, okay, for non-compliance with some kind of law or the other. As far as MCA goes, then if you do not file the financial statements, and this can frequently happen for clients, then if you don't file it for 2 years consecutively, then they may send you a strike off notice. Okay. Now, these are some examples of services where you can give notices or response to notices. Now, other category of gateway service, filing returns, accounts, forms, so income tax related, LLP related, MCA, Companies Act related, GST, shops and establishment, employment and social security returns, RBI related. Then drafting or reviewing initial contracts. So here reviewing maybe could be done, some of the reviewing work, which is like constitutional contracts and documents like partnership deeds, LLP agreements, co-founders agreements, MOA and articles of association, employment agreements, confidentiality agreements. So you're seeing that these are not very, very difficult. Huh? These are relatively simpler. And what we are saying is, now for a lot of lawyers, there's a price war about how much will you charge for income tax registration, how much will you charge for return filing, how much will you charge for creating a company. Now, these are markets where there is a lot of commoditization already happening. There is price undercutting happening. So the best use of this will not be to engage in a price war with the client. This might as well be your investment to get the trust of the client at a lower cost and offer more high value services. Okay, let's just go through the list and then we will have this conversation in more detail. So you've got like consultancy agreements, leave and license agreements, MOA, MOU, memoranda of understanding, power of attorney. Then there are other services like searching the MCA records and retrieving documents if somebody wants some help, securing certified true copies of documents from MCA, or requesting duplicate share certificates, getting names of people transposed on share certificates, claiming back unpaid dividend which got transferred not to the shareholder but the investor education protection fund. Okay, then now if you just look at all these services that I just pointed you out, usually what happens is that lawyers want to treat this as the main service. Okay, now there are two approaches here. If you treat this as the main service, you're going to run into a price war with the client. That's a guarantee. And those who are there in this conversation here in this webinar, if you've had earlier conversations with clients, try to recall how many times clients have literally argued and negotiated a fee structure with you on these aspects, right? So now so this can't be your main meat service if you want to have a profitable practice. So how do you go about that? Now we suggest that you would need to have something else which is more low cost, which is quicker. Now, if you notice in the earlier services, sometimes there was a third party involved, like an MCA or the tax authorities, okay, or SEBI. Secondly, your strategy would have been to do one piece. Like you will not solve the whole problem. You'll respond to SEBI show cause notice, but you will not be able to solve the problem. So it's anyway piecemeal work. Third issue is that you will be dependent on acquisition of facts from the client. Okay, so it'll take some time to deliver, which means the time taken between your first interaction, your delivery of the work, and then then after you deliver the gateway service, then you will send a price quote and then you will get an advance. So it really elongates the onboarding process, and you don't want it to be such a long process. Okay, so how do you compress it? The best way to do it is, in fact, that you create a gateway service which is in the nature of a training, where you can actually you can identify needs that clients would have from these areas and create a training. Now I'm going to give you some examples of trainings and you will be able to connect with these services. Okay, but why do trainings work? Trainings work because your delivery time is limited. Why? Because you could do a 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour training. You could customize that training and it could take you 3 hours to prepare that training or 6 hours to prepare that training. But that is your asset because you can redeliver it. When you prepare a show cause notice response for a client, that is usually, there is some learning in it, but a lot of fact specific work. So you can't reuse it. But a training you can reuse to a large extent. Okay. Delivery is short because you can, once the client agrees to the date, you can deliver it and you're done with it. Your out of pocket costs is lower. Your coordination is lower. There's no third party involved, no statutory regulator. So you can directly go ahead and deliver the training. Okay. And you can deliver more complex trainings quickly and impress clients. Okay. Now let's see what these examples of trainings are. I'm going to show some common trainings and then I'm going to move into some more unique trainings. Okay. Training for employees on employee HR handbook or code of conduct. Data protection trainings. A lot of technology clients will want it. Drafting training for HR managers, how to handle disciplinary proceedings, draft contracts, and respond to statutory authorities. This is a lot of big companies, PSUs, and leading Indian companies have requested us for these trainings. But I'm saying that you can do this for various kinds of clients. Okay, negotiation training, contract negotiation training for business and sales teams. Okay, based on the standard practices, you abstract the points that the founder and the CEO considers important, and you give the whole training to the CEO, CFO, and the business head, sales head, marketing head, that this is what we can do, this is how we negotiate, this is what you can, this is the degree to which you can agree to concessions. Now, what happens here? Okay, the team involved when you're training, the participants will notice your effectiveness, your insight, the degree to which you personalize to the needs of the company, the way you conduct it. And it actually makes them relate to you much more. They can understand, they can trust you. Okay. Now you're not the lawyer whom they think that, I don't know what this person is going to do, because they've actually experienced some of your service. Okay. Then what are other general trainings for any organization? Arbitration and pre-disputes work training for procurement teams and contract managers. So there are many companies which are supplying various kinds of equipment to the government and private sector undertakings. And what happens is that they've got contract managers who are responsible for contract renewals, expiry, different accepting work orders, all of that, but they're not trained in law. Okay, so from time to time, disputes arise and they're not very clear about what kind of document trail to maintain, what kind of notices to issue, and if an escalation is there, then what to do. Now, that is the perfect plant for a litigator or an independent practitioner to get their own work, because you can then train these managers to identify how to create a document trail, how to initiate disputes, what kind of notices to write, when to consult a lawyer, okay, and how to ensure that you've got an effective case. Okay, and when you're going to do this work, the client will more than happily share some free documents with you. Okay, that means you get to know even more about the client. So if there's some more difficult, more complex work to identify, you will have the fodder for it. You will have the available fodder for it to identify that. Then another important area is training on government contracts and tenders for procurement managers. How can you sell to the government? What are the rules? Okay, this is frequently necessary. Okay, on what kinds of grounds can I get disqualified? What do I do if somebody else gets the bid and my company doesn't? On what grounds can I challenge it? How can I ensure compliance with the applicable rules? Then training on how to enforce employment contract violations by employees. This is a major area for many startups. Breach of confidentiality, not honoring non-compete, not honoring notice period, not honoring non-solicit. All of this is a very important issue. Okay. Then post training for ICC. Post trainings can be classified based on the target audience. It could be for ICC members, it could be for management teams, it could be for employee sensitizations alone. Now, the thing is that you may not be exclusively specializing in anti-sexual harassment work, or you may not exclusively specialize in arbitration. The point is not that. The point is to get an inroad. Okay, so this work, if you have access to the right kind of knowledge, learning, and resources, you can learn this work and deliver it to a potential client. Okay, and you can in fact increase your ability to handle it. Now, what kind of trainings could you offer a startup entrepreneur? Okay, some examples. How to prepare for a legal due diligence before your first investment round. What needs to be in order? Okay, you understand that if this training works, the startup entrepreneur is likely to give you work to help you out for term sheet negotiation, review of investment contracts, maybe even drafting the contracts if they are raising money from an angel where they don't have a template. Then they will say, okay, can you help me draft this contract, also share the first draft? Or if it's with a friend, if it's with somebody in the family, then they'll definitely say, you only help me out. Okay. Then if the investor is is a big VC or someone, then they will have their lawyers giving them the templates, but they will involve you for negotiation, reviewing the contract, in protection of the founder's interest. Now, that's how this training leads to generation of future work. And you're not soliciting, you're educating. And if the request comes from them, then you help. How to negotiate term sheets? What are the key founder interests? How to create an ESOP plan, and what are the different kinds of incentives that you can offer employees? There are many. Okay, there is profit share, revenue share, increase in salary. These are the simplest ones. But ESOP, sweat equity, stock appreciation rights, phantom stock, these are some of the unique kinds of options that you can give. And founders are really interested in these structures. Okay, tax issues faced by startups on an everyday basis and how to deal with them. Corporate Law 101 for first-time founders. How to keep your business in good health from day one. Legal, tax, and secretarial requirements. Okay, now what happens with these trainings is that the earlier work that you saw, where you're getting this work on how to incorporate, or some other work on responding to a notice from a regulatory authority. Now, when you're delivering this training, it kind of sets you up to do even that other work with a slightly higher margin. You can always charge a little premium because you have actually built that deep relationship with the client, and you'll be able to spot 2 or 3 areas of work. So the client doesn't come to you with just this, that can you help me incorporate a company? No. When you've done this training, suppose you've done this, how to keep your business in good health from day one, legal, tax, and secretarial requirements. It opens a window for a client to say, okay, hi, I've got this notice from a labor authority, this notice from a tax authority. What else can I do to ensure I'm in good health. Then you can do a quick MCA search and see whether they filed returns or not. And then you can say, hey, your returns, all of that is not filed. Okay. And and then you will ask them, okay, how are you've not filed your annual compliance requirements for the MCA, but I was just curious that are you having contracts in place, a written contract in place with your key customers or with your key suppliers? And that person may say no. And that's how new work gets generated. Okay. It's not you asking for work, you're asking questions for them. And then they understand that, okay, I don't have contracts also, I've not done compliance, so I need to get this work done. So now when I'm armed with so much information, I can give them a longer plan. They will not argue with me on, okay, this guy is offering me this much for company incorporation work. In fact, you will be saying that, okay, you need to do this company incorporation, you need to respond to this notice, you need to have these contracts for investment readiness and all of that. So you'll have a plan for them to engage. And I'm going to discuss how to create these plans at length tomorrow from in the workshop from 7 to 10 p.m. Okay. More examples of trainings. How to create a comprehensive plan to protect your intellectual property from infringement. Okay, so this would involve a combination of trademark search services on trademark or any other IP form. For patents, it'll work in a little different way. But let's take trademark as an example. So you will perform trademark search on the official journal of trademarks, file oppositions. You may file infringement suits by doing public searches on Google and other resources. And any instances of infringement, you issue cease and desist notices. You file infringement claims. Okay. Now this specific training leads you to give this strategy to the client, and the client starts thinking that some clients will say, yes, I need to have this because I need to protect my brand very strongly. Okay. So this is how it generates that work. And if you look at the IP firms, a lot of IP firms have done this work, still continue to do it, where they offer an annual plan. And they say to the company that we will give you a report on enforcement every month. And then there'll be an annual report, which your board can keep on what enforcement action we've taken. We've sent 100 cease and desist notices to potential infringers. And they have stopped, they have agreed that they will not carry out this work. Now, this report will go to the board of directors of the client, or the parent company of the client, which they can show. Okay, so that is how this creates that kind of value. Okay, that proceeding did not end. You may not have had to file the infringement suit. You just filed that notice and somebody agreed that, okay, we will not continue this. Now you're getting the work because you're creating an annual plan for a client. Then 10 legal mistakes made by entrepreneurs during the first 5 years of their startup journey and how you can prevent them. Okay, again, you will educate, but people will be able to identify and relate. If your training is bad, then it's a different thing. Then they will not connect with it. How to select an appropriate service provider for legal services. Pros and cons of using free templates versus using service such as Vakil Search or India Filings versus approaching lawyers. Legal tools to reduce likelihood of payment defaults and increase money recovery rates. Free legal health checkup for raising angel investment or venture capital. Trainings and other services specific to large companies and listed entities. Anti-corruption training. So if the company has a parent outside India, maybe in the US or UK, then chances are that they will want all their Indian company employees to be trained on anti-corruption, on their own anti-corruption policy and some aspects of Indian anti-corruption law. Insider trading training, very important for companies which are listed, any entity that's listed. Okay. Companies, funds, real estate investment trusts, all of them. Okay. Also important for major service providers to these companies, because they will have access to the information about the listed company. They may be termed as insiders, so they want their employees not to violate this. Dawn raid trainings. These are basically trainings to prepare for CCI raids. Now, this is usually with a big company because that's where the CCI would be expected to raid, where they suspect that either there is a cartel happening or there is some kind of secret arrangement. Okay, so that's where you can have a CCI raid. Contract review training from a competition scrutiny perspective. Labor inspection preparedness drill. So this is an example where you can train HR managers and their juniors to be trained to handle a local labor inspection. Legal risk management in respect of subcontracting high value contracts. So if you look at bigger contracts for, let's say, in the energy sector, electricity automation contracts, all of those. We've done one of these trainings in 2010, even before graduation. It was an experiment, and we did it for a big company. Now, here what happens is that these companies get contracts from like a government corporation, a 700 crore contract, 800 crore contract, and then they have an internal team, but they will be outsourcing this to they'll be subcontracting different parts of the work, and then managing this and integrating the project together. So you will need to train the managers, and they are not trained in law. Okay, they have been following some practices based on what's happened in the past, but they will want to know legal insights on how they can subdelegate, what are the issues that will arise, ranging from tax, environmental, to whether my contractor can levy penalty clauses, all of that. Okay, then trainings for getting work from individuals. Okay, how can, now these are examples and you can keep inventing. How can independent artists or producers and documentary filmmakers use product placement to finance their films? How should content creators protect their IP on the internet? How to negotiate your services agreement for actors, maybe directors, script writers, and other service providers. How to negotiate celebrity endorsements for influencers. How then, another one that you can offer to lawyers is you can assist independent lawyers or small law firms, if you're a student especially, with writing and building their practice. In big law firms, they are started to have a strategy group or a knowledge management team or a business strategy group where they will look at increasing the firm's branding and all of that, creating more content, creating more research reports. So they'll have a team to do that. So if you've graduated and you know how to do all of this, it increases your chances of working in such a team with a big law firm. And you can, as a student, start out by practicing this for independent practitioners, and they will really be happy to pay you a stipend for any traction that they get. And this will be a skill that puts you in a little bit of an esoteric mysterious zone, because this is the stuff that they wouldn't be doing regularly, and they will value any results they get from your efforts. What are the trainings that you can give for senior management? Basics of online reputation management, legal tools necessary to contain business risk, how to negotiate investment rounds with investors, how to raise finance, legal and commercial aspects of obtaining finance from domestic banks, NBFCs, and international lenders. How is it all different? Okay, now do you see how there's a rich variety? And I spent some time only identifying these trainings, but if I work a lot more on this, one can keep inventing more and more and more trainings. Okay, and now any time you spend on learning how to deliver these is going to be your asset, because you will learn the problems, and then in the session you will get more in touch with the problems and people ask you doubts. Okay, and you will also get closer to the actual services that need to be offered to the target audience. Okay, and you don't have an out-of-pocket cost. This is not dependent on the client sharing information with you. This is dependent on the client sharing information, but you don't have to wait on it. You can say that I need ABCD information. I need to speak to 2 people who are stakeholders who have faced this issue, and I will create a training. Okay, so that's how simple it gets. Okay, this is all for people who are not your clients, Rakhi. These are prospective clients, people who reached out to you. Okay, you're not approaching people for training, like you're not making cold approaches for training. You want to do that, then you can organize a YouTube public video. Like right now, we're live on YouTube. You can do a YouTube webinar. Okay, like you can do a Zoom webinar, put it live online. That's how you do, so that people who like and associate with what you're doing, they will, and who want to know more about you, they'll reach out to you. Okay, so I'm not talking about asking for work. This will organically, naturally lead people to ask you for work, and this is what you want to do. Okay, now what should be done after the delivery of the gateway service? Okay, so now is the part where the trust is built, a general level credibility is built, the trust with the specific client has been built. Okay, now is the time to send the roadmap that, after this, you'll have a ton of information about the client's business goals. You will say these 5 or 8 things are needed. You can do this in 3 months or in 6 months, depending on what your priority is. I can help you identify these. This is the cost for every step This is my quantification of time. I will take so many hours to do each piece of work, and this is what I charge. Okay. And you will be surprised, and I'll show you this tomorrow, that if you charge even 2,000 or 3,000 rupees per hour of work, it doesn't look much. Okay. Because even gym trainers and personal trainers charge you anywhere between 800 to 1,500. If you have children, your child's tuition teacher for class 10 will charge you something around 600, 800 per hour. Okay. Music lessons cost that much. So, this amount of money of 2,000 or 3,000 is not questioned by clients if you give them a proper roadmap of how much time each part of the service will take. Okay. So, and I'll show you the calculation, how to go about it, what the roadmap looks like, all of that. Okay. We will need that kind of 3-hour time to discuss this. Now, at this point, because the trust is so high, you can ask for an advance to begin work. Okay. You can say that this is the lump sum for all the steps. This is the advance that you can start with for the first step. And if you pay me for all the steps together, I can give you a discount of 20%. Okay. But now that 20% looks respectable to the client. They will not say, okay, do it for 50% of the fee. That won't happen. Okay. And your gateway service was the only free or super low value service. Now, what this training approach allows you to do is that if some incorporation related or legal notice related work had to be done, you can even price for that. Okay. Because the gateway service allows you to sort of include these pieces of work that you were earlier doing into the roadmap. Okay. Now, there is one problem with the whole part that I've discussed till now. The problem is that usually independent practitioners are only providing these services that I just discussed. Like you've got a couple of years or 1 year of experience at a firm or as an independent or as a junior litigator, and you would only be giving services like this part. Okay. So basically, or this. So you are restricted to filing, reviewing initial contracts. There's no high margin service. There's no high value exclusive service that you're giving. Okay. This can happen. Okay. Now the goal is that whether you're creating your gateway service or you're creating high value services, you will need to learn more. Okay. Now, how do you go about that? First, you need to understand the concept of client lifetime value. What is client lifetime value? It is the amount of legal work that a client can give you over a lifetime. Okay. What is the amount of legal work that can be generated? Factor in also that if one client refers a minimum of 2 to 3, one happy client refers 2 to 3 other clients to you, what will the value of that be? Okay. And you will soon realize that the value of one good client is very, very high. Okay. But there's a condition. If you're only doing incorporation, return filing work and all of that, then there's not a lot of value. Now, this value will be high only if you can offer high value services. And that makes the initial investment on your client acquisition and delivery of the low cost services that we were talking about, that makes it worth it, because these then become your you can say your trust building exercise, so that you can, these are like your subsidized activities, so that later on you can charge a profitable amount for others. This is there in all businesses. You can check for, car business, you can check for printer business. The first printer you buy is really cheap, but the cartridge that you buy as a refill is like, if you buy an original cartridge, it is 60% or 70% the cost of the printer. Okay. Same way you will see in the, if you buy a BMW, the cost of one tire itself when you want a spare part will be very high. So car companies make a huge margin from after sales service and spare parts as compared to what margins they make on the initial manufacturing. Okay. So this is the concept here, that you have to understand what is the client lifetime value. Now, remember this, depending on your own skill sets and what services you can offer, the client lifetime value differs from lawyer to lawyer. So if you have more services up your sleeve, you're going to see a client and you're going to say, oh my God, this client can really help me build my practice. Okay. And for another lawyer who doesn't have a lot of skills, cannot deliver a lot of other services, will be like, man, this is all I'm going to get. This person is going to negotiate with me on the fee and is going to demand the world and is going to ask me for a retainer and then ask me to do like 200 hours of work for 20,000 or less. And it's going to go crazy. Okay. So if client, now understand this, if a client lifetime value of a new client is high for you, you will invest more time in getting that client, agreed? and you'll be excited that, okay, now I can do this work on client acquisition. But if the value is low, your margins will get squeezed by negotiations with clients, and you will hate working on client acquisition. And if that happens for an independent practitioner, that is literally the death of your independent practice then and there, right? Even working on your own existing practice will appear to be uh, a burdensome task. Okay. Now, how do you onboard more clients effectively and increase client lifetime value? Both have to happen simultaneously. So you have to have effective onboarding and increase lifetime value. That means you got to learn skills to invent new gateway services and also for new high value services. Okay. And you will have to create content around the gateway services that you offer. So this goes back into your credibility building. For those of you who've been reading our emails over the past week or attending my webinars, I've been speaking a lot about writing articles, building your credibility and all of that. So you can create content around the gateway services and that, and the videos and the articles, and also take periodic webinars for your readers every week. Okay, or every fortnight. You can decide different topics. You can say that every Saturday I will take on one key vertical. Okay, and like that you can have 4 different topics, 4 different themes for every week of the month, and take those webinars. Now this builds your credibility and also primes people who may need your service to come, and you don't have to do the filtering. That's the best part. You send your invite. Okay, and this is a training, so it's fine to invite people to a training. It's different to approach people to give a one-to-one specific training as a option for getting legal work. Here you're inviting them just for a free training. This is cool. Okay, now at the same time, learn to deliver high value services, because when you get your clients, you want to offer a comprehensive roadmap which has some high value services also, because so that you can realize more value in your bank account as well, and more client delight. You can earn a name, you can build your reputation for doing more complex work. Okay, now are you interested in learning more? If you are, tomorrow we are having a 3-hour workshop on how to build a practice where you can get 2 new clients per month and earn a velocity where you're earning 2 lakhs additional income per month. Okay, this is the link. There's a special offer price of 100 rupees with a refund policy. If you attend the class, the whole workshop live, and do the assignment, and you don't find value after submitting the assignment, within 2 days you can claim a refund. Okay, and recommend it for people who want to start independent practice at some point of time or another. If you're already an independent practitioner, amazing, then this is the best time to do it right away. Okay, and I'm going to take some questions and feedback now from all of you. Okay, and if you want me to explain any part of the session, I'll be happy to do that. Any service, any question you had, any of that? Yes. So what part of this can you implement? Did you see that one of the major barriers for people is to identify what could be a gateway service? I've done that homework right now, so I could identify for you. But when you're talking to somebody who's a potential client, you'll have to do that work. So you'll have to identify the training, then you'll have to learn how to deliver it, right? Then you'll have to practice delivery. And training is not something we learned in law school, right? We didn't learn as lawyers how to be great trainers. And yet, if you can interact effectively with a client or train their key decision makers, you will earn their respect, right? Yes, Jagannath. So how to train yourself for training is you will need access to learning resources, and you will also simultaneously need to need some guidance on how to onboard new clients in different areas. So we will discuss all of that in detail tomorrow. Remember, what's the gap? Learning. Okay, because if you decide that I want to go to work in a law firm or with a senior to learn the work, how many different seniors will you work with? How many years will you spend working in a law firm? After a certain point in time, you get super specialized in a law firm in one type of work. Okay, and what if there's a new practice area after that and you need to get into that? So logically, it's not sustainable to think that I will need to spend years for first getting trained and then learn. Okay, so you have to figure out a parallel way of learning. You'll have to figure out a parallel way of simulated practice. Okay, if you can't do it for a real client, you can do it in simulation mode under training and guidance, and then practice this out with a real client. That will minimize your error rates. Okay. The third is that you will need to have access to guidance and mentors, because there are times when you get stuck and you need to know how to deal with this, right? Like a lot of times our students say, okay, I've got this new client and he wants me to help out with this kind of agreement. How can I go about it? Or I'm preparing an offer or a proposal for a client for a new kind of work. And how do I make this proposal look reasonable or attainable to the client? I want to, then another one could be that I want to structure so and so kind of a deal. What are the contracts that will be there? How will I plan it? How will the deal work? Okay. So these kind of guidance you will need from time to time when you're working on your own clients. But and that doesn't take too much time. Like once you've got the basic skill sets, you can create a resource pool. We'll help you in how to do that tomorrow. Okay. We'll tell you how to do that and how you can access all of that. So you have that resource pool. They will guide you on how to get past these obstacles. And if you're able to onboard a few clients successfully with that guidance, then the practice and the self-confidence has had a boost and your practice really takes off. So that's the difference. So Bushra, yesterday in my I'll just share the link of the webinar for the benefit of Jagannath and everybody else, and then I will address your question, Bushra. What happens is that if you saw the mails that we've been sending or the webinars that I've been taking, when a client comes to you after a background of credibility, after seeing your track record and they've been interacting with you, then they will not question this. Okay, because they will know that if you did not have the competence to do the work, then you wouldn't have been writing those pieces, because nobody else is doing that. But if the client comes to you and your interaction with the client is the only thing that you remember, then there is a credibility question. They will say that, okay, what is your experience? Because they only have memory of like 2 interactions with you. So what is necessary is that they need to be really getting your content. You need to be pushing out a lot more content to your mailing list. You need to build your own legal website, like as an independent practitioner, have people subscribe, post on your social media every day. These are some of the things you've been doing in the course. So you will need to keep doing that over a period of time. So after that, people will not question your experience. And guess what? You will get more clients and you will acquire more experience really fast after that. Okay. All right. Does anybody have any other questions? Bushra, does this address your concern? How to identify a gateway service? This is a really good question. Okay. So Bijal, which kind of clientele do you want to cater to? Now, there are some gateway services which are common, like an employment code of conduct policy will be common. Okay, how to train employees on code of conduct. Post trainings will be common. Now, there will be some other trainings which will be sector specific. Data protection training will be for technology entrepreneurs. Or there could be contract negotiation training, more generic for sales teams of multiple categories of companies. Yeah, Bijal. So in IP, I told one of those, how to protect your IP from infringement globally or in India. Okay, and then you can, based on the target business of the client, whether they are trademark centric, copyright centric, or patent focused, or whether all of that is involved, you will create a training for them on how to look out for infringement, and how to take action against infringers, and why it's important to take action against infringers, and what are the risks if you don't do this on time. Like in trademarks, there can be an issue of honest concurrent user arising, and so then later you will not be able to restrain a competitor who grows big, right? So those things become important. Okay, and then even look at this, how to protect your IP on the internet internationally. And there's this whole world of different kinds of takedown notices that you can issue to get infringing content taken off, right? Okay, any other questions? All right, so should we conclude the webinar? Those who are interested, you can register for the workshop. The link is there on the chat box, and see you tomorrow. I'm really excited. There's going to be a lot of new stuff that's going to be discussed tomorrow. Okay. Cheers, everybody, and bye. Have a